My topic for my lecture is multiculturalism as a response to ethnic and language diversities. And the adjacent topic is also the identity policies in Azerbaijan. So I suggest that students should read from the following sources online. And the point, so I would like just to study the national identity symbols. So as we know that there are different approaches to multiculturalism, and among these approaches, semiotic analysis or semiotic approach finds its place, and it's very important that semiotic approach is defended. Let's say the advocate of the semiotic approach is Professor Taylor, Charles Taylor from United Kingdom, and his school. And I try just to apply this semiotic approach to language differences, language varieties, and diversity of language and national identity, and start the topic with sort of symbols, and national symbols of Azerbaijan Republic in particular. So I mean the flag and the emblem, and to try just to unfold the meanings of the issue through this symbolic understanding. Azerbaijan has always been multi-ethnic, multi-religious and multilingual country since the ancient times. Today, the tricolor national flag of sovereign Azerbaijan, and we see the flag on the table either here. And today, this flag of sovereign Azerbaijan illustrates best the historical, social, cultural, political development trajectories of ethnic and national identity formation policies in Azerbaijan, in my view. So look at the flag, and we see here, three colors, and so each color having its meaning and symbolic meaning. So I'm going to just to promote the idea of symbolic understanding of the identity issues and the variety, the diversities of the languages too. As you see from the national flag, the blue color is the sign of Turkism, and the red color is the sign of modernization in terms of westernization of the country, and the green color is the sign of Islamization. So altogether, we can say we can just generalize that we have two ideologies, as we see from the flag. So Turkism and plus modernization and Islamization. So that it's a long way that from Islamization to Turkism. So and these ideologies were dominant, say that in the 19th century and at the start of 20th century in Azerbaijan. Modernization intended to express the adoption of Western scientific, technological progress and democratic values in making the first democratic nation state in the Muslim world in 1980s. At the same time, the tricolor flag symbolizes three forms of ethnic national identities in Azerbaijan. The colors and sizes were officially adopted on February the 5th, 1991. This flag was used from November 9, 1918 to 1920, when Azerbaijan was independent, and it was reviewed with slight variations on February 5th, 1993, when Azerbaijan regained its independence. The nickname of the flag is Üç Renkli Bayrak, which means the tricolor flag. So the state emblem is also very symbolic and very rich in meaning and in importance, so we should talk about the state emblem of Azerbaijan mixes traditional and modern symbols. The focal point of the emblem is the fire symbol, and you see that on the map, that on the screen. And this symbol comes from the fact that Azerbaijan has many everlasting fires, which also gives the name, land of eternal fire, in representation of its original roots in Zoroastrianism. So, I mean that the first religion in Azerbaijani land and having its origin in Azerbaijan, so then spread throughout Central Asia, Iranian Plato, and Eurasia on the whole, so that even so we can find the tracks, I mean, of these religions, say, in Italy or Mediterranean Syrias and Central and Eastern Europe as well. At the bottom of the emblem is a stalk of wheat representing the main agricultural product of the nation. The other plant represented at the bottom is oak, and you see that on the map, I mean on the screen, yeah. The colors used in composing the emblem are taken from the national flag. The green represents again here the Azerbaijan is an Islamic country. Red represents the development and democracy in Azerbaijan. The 8-pointed star, octagram, has several readings. One is that stands for the 8 branches of the Turkic tribals, peoples in different geographical areas, and between each point of the star there is a smaller 8-pointed star form. Others says that it indicates to the name of Azerbaijan as it is written in 8 characters in Arabic language. Still others affirm that it symbolizes 8 characters in the writing of Land of Fire, Od Yurdu, in Azerbaijani language. The national emblem of the Azerbaijan Republic symbolizes the independence of Azerbaijan. The national emblem is the image of an oriental shield and semicircle formed by the branches of an oak tree and ears resting on it. The shield contains the image of a fire in the center of an 8-point star against the background of the colors of the national flag of Azerbaijan. Further, there is a great misunderstanding of ethnic concepts in academic literature. Therefore, we shortly distinguish between different types of identity, including ethnic and national identity forms. In our view, the social and umbrella concept that embraces the other forms of multiple identities is the concept of social identity. For example, ethnic identity, which emerges out of social identity theory, usually focuses within psychology on the individual and interpersonal processes. Social identity theory posits that belonging to social groups, example, religious groups or occupational groups, or some, other groups, serves an important basis for one's identity. Membership in a group or groups, as well as one's value and emotional significance attached to its membership, is an important part of one's self-concept. In our view, this kind of social group, belonging or identity, is the core of ethnic identity viewed from sociological perspective, which actually makes sense within the system of modern civil society in which no one ethnic group can dominate culturally, linguistically, religiously over other ethnic group or belonging. This is what Azerbaijani ethnic and national identity policies pursue to build into the structure of its multiculturalism. In our view, ethnic identity formation is a social construction which is continually formed all the way down in our everyday social life. Ethnic identity is characterized as part of one's overarching self-concept and identification. It is distinct from the development of ethnic group identities as well as from nation and national identity. The 18th century brought an alteration to the meaning of the term nation, which became more narrowly referred to as a group with a recognizable and sovereign government with physical borders. This new definition aligns more with the concept of a nation-state. The nation began to emerge in the late 18th century as the leading form of government and social organization. Let me draw your attention to 2 types of nation-building models, ethnic nation and civic nation, that have dominated the international system. and the post-Soviet social, political and cultural space since 19th and 20th centuries. As I noticed in the late 20th century, many social scientists argued that the civic nation of which France was the principal example and the ethnic nation was exemplified by the German peoples. The ethnic nation referred to people sharing a common language, religion, culture, history and ethnic origins that differentiate them from people of other nations. On the other hand, civic nation was traced to the French Revolution, which was understood as being centered in a willingness to live together. That's, that voluntarily to live together. We can say it this way too. Present-day analysis tend to be based in socio-historical studies about the building of national identity sentiments, in which it seems that the state often plays a significant role and communication, particularly of economic content, have a higher significance. So, after the collapse of the former USSR, qualified by many as the fall of one of the last citadels of the world empire, the splash of ethnicity and ethnic nationalism was seen across the world, including the Caucasus, at the end of the 20th century and the beginning of 21st century, as globalization and intensive integration processes started to develop. Such increases of interest in ethnicity have occurred at different places, different parts in the history of civilization. Our ideas about the ethnic identity, also about the development of the languages in the Caucasus, in particular in Azerbaijan, is based on the different sources, and these sources help us to identify some characteristic features of this development within the frame of this lecture, of this course. And we are absolutely convinced that the national leader, Heydar Aliyev, as the president of independent Azerbaijan Republic, has started with a new vision of the nation's state-building project in Azerbaijan, based on the long social, cultural, and historical political traditions of the country, the new model of the multiculturalism, Azerbaijani patriotism, which in contrast to extreme Turkism and Islamism, is blind to any racial, extreme, ethnic, national and religious dimensions, and an inclusive multicultural citizenship model which has significantly reduced the inherited from the past times, outdated ethnic nationalism based on blood, soil and physical racial anthropology. Let us turn our attention to facts related to ethnic, religious and linguistic situation in Azerbaijan, beginning with the language policy. So the point is that ethnic minorities and language policy in Azerbaijan, in the absence of a clear definition of the basic term, such as national minority or ethnic minority, the number of ethnic and foreign groups that are present in any given country is virtually impossible to define. Concerning Azerbaijan, the figures vary from 60 to 80, depending on the sources and the actors met by Human Rights Without Frontiers project on the occasion of several trips to Azerbaijan. Official census from the early Soviet period until the independence of Azerbaijan provides some useful information, but due to the repressive nature of the Soviet regime, ethnic self-identification cannot be altogether a reliable source of information. In the case of Azerbaijan, we have grounded our conclusion on the results of the last official census 2009, since the methodology has been certified by the Council of Europe Advisory Board on the Framework Convention for the Protection of National Minorities. We can easily note two general tendencies, in all contemporary national welfare states, in which Azerbaijan is not an exception. On the one hand, minorities would like their identity, their culture and their folklore, their language and their religion to be preserved and developed. However, some of these markers risk getting diluted by mixed marriages and school education in the official language, They can disappear from one generation to the next. Members of minorities want to be fully integrated in society, but they do not want to be entirely assimilated. On the other hand, states often pursue demands for more collective rights, for more autonomy, for constitutional political changes, with suspicion and as a possible threat to their territorial integrity in the future. Both of these trends or tendencies are perceptible in Azerbaijan as well. There may be lessons to learn from Azerbaijan's experience of ethnic and ethno-religious diversity that could be helpful for other states that are dealing with comparable diversity within their borders. Language is an essential factor in nation building. When the language is in decline, the identity of a nation is in decline too. As a result, each language has a deep historical background related to its nation. The status of ethnicities residing on Azerbaijani territories was complicated as well. They could not have any opportunities in their native languages under the Soviet Union. The Soviet rule created a rather complicated situation for minority groups in Azerbaijan. Thus, they had to preserve their native language and acquire the Azerbaijani language together with the Russian language. As an addition to the Soviet policy, by 1938 decree, the Soviet Union declared Russian an obligatory second language status in all non-Russian schools of the Union countries and increased the sense of the Russian language with a centralized curriculum and with increased hours spent on Russian learning and teaching. The Russification policies of the Soviet Union lead to language polarization within the Azerbaijan nation, which has not yet fully resolved in Azerbaijani society. Under Soviet rule, the value of Russian language was high despite the fact that Azerbaijan held the status of a state language. The people with lack of Russian language, Russian knowledge, were considered less modern and less mobile. When the Soviet Union collapsed, there were an estimated 25 million ethnic Russians and 36.5 million native speakers of Russian in ex-Union countries. In Azerbaijan, according to a 1994 estimation, 38% of the population was fluent in Russian, while 82% of the population spoke Azerbaijani as their mother tongue. However, according to the 1989 census, 97.7% of Azerbaijanis considered Azerbaijani their native and heritage tongue. Moreover, the majority of the elite considered Russophones. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, Azerbaijan took steps toward a new era in nation building and language policy. Together with that, Azerbaijan entered into its era of independence with the conflict of Nagorno-Karabakh, the unresolved war between Azerbaijan and Armenia that has lasted over 22 years. On 18 October 1991, Azerbaijan declared its independence from the Soviet Union. Azerbaijan was one of the nations and managed to preserve its national identity, language and culture under Soviet rule. More generally, the basic Soviet policy in Azerbaijan was based on the principle of gradually reaching the reduction of the Azerbaijani language within the country, whereas most of the scientific books in the state libraries were in Russian. Not surprisingly, Azerbaijan is the homeland of diverse ethno-linguistic groups that speak languages of different family groups. According to the 1999 statistics in Azerbaijan, the minority groups were Lezgins, constituting 2.2%, Russians 1.8%, Armenians 1.5%, Talush 1%, Avar 0.6%, Tat 0.13%, Tsakhur 0.2%, Georgian 0.2%, Kurds 0.2%, Jews 0.1. Udin, very small portion of the Udin, so that's other nationalities. So 0.12% of the total population in Azerbaijan. These data have been taken from the Library of President, the population census, number 32. These above-mentioned ethnicities in Azerbaijan belong to the following language groups: North Caucasian, Indo-European, and Kartvelian. I give short explanation related to the Lezgins. That shortly after independence, the government also enhanced its support for ethnic minority groups and their languages. In 1992, legislation adopted by the Azerbaijani government states that the country protects the civil rights and freedoms, development of cultures and languages of minority ethnic groups settled on Azerbaijani territory. In contrast to the Soviet years, the minority nations were now given opportunities in their own languages. In 1992, Article 6 of the 7th October Law on Education and Article 3 of the State Language Law ensure the minority nations the rights and educational opportunities in their native tongues. And this was great progress compared to the former Soviet USSR. The Lezgis are a Caucasian ethnic group living predominantly on both sides of Samur River in southern Dagestan, Russia, and in the northeast of Azerbaijan, also in Baku and in Sungait. The Lezgis are the descendants of the Northeast Caucasian peoples who have inhabited the region of southern Dagestan since at least the Bronze Age. According to the 1999 census, there were 178,000 Lezgis in Azerbaijan, accounting for 2.2% of the population, while about 470,000 live in Russia according to the official census. Lezgis are predominantly Sunni Muslims in Shia majority of Azerbaijan. Their language belongs to the Northeast Caucasian group of Lezgis languages. There were very few written works in Lezgi before the Soviet period. Until 1928, Arabic script was used. From 1928 to 1938, Latin script, and then after 1938, Cyrillic script. There is a 30-minute program in Azerbaijan concerning the Lezgi language, which is taught once a week on the national radio station, and there are also Lezgi language local radio and TV broadcasts in the Khachmaz and Gusar regions. Samur, a Lezgi multilingual newspaper founded in 1996, has a circulation of 3,000 and is published twice a month in Baku, containing articles in Azerbaijani, Russian and Lezgi languages. In more than 100 schools, there are Lezgi classes in the first 4 grades. It is the same for all minority languages, for Talush language and other languages like this. The teachers in Lezgi classes are trained at the Pedagogical University of Baku. They can also, so not only Lezgi, teachers from Talush and from other minority groups, also having, pedagogical training, so at the Pedagogical University of Baku and Baku State University either. They can also go to Dagestan on the other side of the border with Russia to get university training. There are several ethnic Lezgi members of parliament, and some Lezgin people occupy high status in the government structures and administrative structures of the Azerbaijani Republic. The next larger minority language or ethnic groups are Russians. Russian minority in Azerbaijan numbered 119,300 according to the last census held in 2009. Kazakhs and members of persecuted religious minorities were the first Russian settlers in the region. Following the Russian-Persian War 1826-1828, the Treaty of Turkmenchai gave most of present-day Azerbaijan to Russia. Over the course of 1830s, more immigrants from Tambov, Saratov, Voronezh and other Russian provinces settled in Azerbaijan. After Azerbaijan became part of the Soviet Union, the republic's Russian population continued to rise steadily. It reached 500,000 by 1939, accounting for more than 60% of the total population. Many Russians arrived in Baku during the Great Patriotic War, as well as during the surge of rapid industrial developments in Baku in 1950s. They were in a favorable position and conditions, occupied key industrial and financial posts in Azerbaijan. The Russian language came to dominate politics and society. For decades, Russophone elite existed in Baku, including famous personalities such as musician Mstislav Rostropovich, the singer Muslim Magomаев, Nobel laureate Lev Landau, actor and film director Yuri Gusman, and some others. Independent Azerbaijan period. The demise of the Soviet Union was accompanied by a number of regional conflicts and wars for independence. Azerbaijan was no exception. The Russian language was gradually replaced by Azerbaijani, not only at the state level but also in everyday life. Not knowing the official language of the newly independent countries, the Russians were left out of the social and economic life of society. Heydar Aliyev was elected the president in 1993. There were positive changes in policies in respect to the Russian-speaking population of Azerbaijan. Aliyev revived relations with Russia and joined the Commonwealth of Independent States. He restored the 9th of May as World War II Victory Day and Women's Day on 8th of March, two important and emblematic holidays of the late Soviet Union. Some short words about the Talysh too, so relevant here. The Talysh minority in Azerbaijan lives along an Iranian border in the districts of Astara, Lankaran, Masallı, Bilaspar, Lirik. The 2009 census claims 112,000 Talysh citizens living in Azerbaijan. The 1926 census registered 77,040 Talysh. In the 1959, 1970 and 1979 censuses, they disappeared from the list of ethnicities to be survived. Only in 1989 census could the Talysh again mention their ethnicity. Around 21,200 dared to it at that time. The Talysh are mainly Shia Muslims. Talysh identity is fairly ill-defined. According to Hema Koticha, a development researcher and anthropologist who wrote in 2006 an Islamic and ethnic identity in Azerbaijan. Other experts divide the Talysh minority self-identity into two distinct groups, those with radical nationalistic views and those with no interest at all in such matters. The Talysh language is a northwestern Iranian branch of Indo-European languages used in northern Iran and southern Azerbaijan. It's currently written in Azerbaijan with a version of Latin script. Talysh are for the most part bilingual, multilingual, speaking both Talysh, Azerbaijani, Russian, English, and etc. Talysh classes are offered in homogeneous Talysh areas for children in grades from 1 to 4. So I provide you with some literature here, and so you can just have a look at them and just get familiar more in detail about the history and about the language policy that in relation to Talush people, Talush language and Talush ethnicity. And so they have newspaper which is named so Talush Sado, which means the voice of Talush, was also created the same year. The only newspaper in Azerbaijan that is solely written in the Talush language. The Avar people live principally in the Caucasian mountains of northwestern Azerbaijan and Dagestan. They are Sunni Muslims and their activity is principally related to agriculture. In neighboring Dagestan, Avars are among those groups more influenced by Islamic religious revival and the spread of Wahhabism, an unwelcome movement in the secular Republic of Azerbaijan. I should say generally that Azerbaijan is very open to different effects, external effects in terms of religious developments, so that we have, let's say, the impact from Saudi Arabia, the Sunni Islamic movements, and another source that Turkish impact, Turkish Islamist movement, or also Sunnit, and the third one is Iranian Shiism, so that from Iran, yeah. So country is open to these external influences, so we should take that into consideration. So they interfere with religious matters, as we know from the facts and from the figures existing so in literature and in some sources. Wahhabism, unwelcome movement in the secular Republic of Azerbaijan. According to the last census, 2009, they numbered 49,800, 1,000 less than in 99, but much more than all the previous census. According to 96 census, there were 19,104, and 99 census decreased that of 50,871. Some word about the language or Avar is needed to be mentioned here. The Avar language is a member of the Avaro-Andidido language group, which belongs to the northeastern branch of the North Caucasian language family. The Avar dialects are generally divided into northern and southern dialects. Literary Avar is reported to be difficult for Avars in Azerbaijan. Very few Avars, whether they live in towns or villages, can speak, read or write it. The Avar language began to take written form in the 17th century. Most of the children of Avar families attend Azerbaijani schools, their choice being motivated by the location of the school rather than by language. However, there are 11 schools in Balakan attended by 890 students in 2013 and 14, and as many schools in Zagazala with 644 students where the Avar language has been taught from the first to the fourth grade since 1989. These statistics provided by the Ministry of Education of Azerbaijan, Department of International Cooperations. In ethnically mixed communities, Azerbaijani is primary language used in most circumstances, as well as in Avar, among Avar peoples. So we should say some words about the Turks. So that's a special issue, and now it has been discussed and discussing, so you know that for many years. And according to 2009 census, about 38,000 people identify themselves as Turks in Azerbaijan, but there are some controversies about whether to call them Aveska Turks or Meskhetian Turks. According to 1926 census, 95, 1939 census, 600, 1959 census, 202, 1970 census, 8,491, 1979 census, 7,926, 89 census, 17,705, 99 census, 43,454. And so I just can refer to the sources where I've taken the data. You have the literature here. These Turks live in rural areas, mainly in Sabirabad, and they were just relocated in these areas, in the Sabirabad, Quba, Kazakh, Beylagan, Khachmaz, Shamkir, Saatli regions. They basically came to Azerbaijan at the end of the 1980s when they fled from Uzbekistan following the ethnic conflicts in Fergana. Search for the work in other countries also contributes to show but steady decrease of the outflow of Asker Turks to different areas or regions, districts of Azerbaijan.